brutally attacked while tending to his animals in Freeport on February 4th. Police say the suspect, a 25-year-old man known to the victim, struck him multiple times with a cutlass. The farmer suffered severe injuries, including a fractured finger, a partially amputated ear, and deep wounds. He remains in stable condition at the San Fernando General Hospital. The suspect has since been detained by police. A Trinidadian man wanted in the U.S. for attempted murder has been extradited to face trial in New York. Vincent Robert was charged in 2021 for allegedly trying to kill his ex-girlfriend in Brooklyn. He fled to Trinidad in 2022 while out on bail. The U.S. requested his extradition last year, and he was arrested in Laventille in April. Authorities say his extradition highlights the strong law enforcement cooperation between Trinidad and Tobago and the United States. If convicted, Roberts faces up to 25 years in prison. Well, that's news to the hour on WESN. I'm Naomi McNish. Thanks for watching.
WESN.
Attention everyone! The Office of the Prime Minister Communications has launched a brand new WhatsApp channel designed to keep you informed and connected like never before. Get real-time updates, breaking news, and important information directly from the source. With our WhatsApp channel, you'll always know what's happening when it's happening. Joining is easy. Use your phone camera, scan this QR code, tap follow, and that's it. You're in. Be sure to tap the notification bell to never miss an update. Stay informed, stay empowered. Join the conversation with the Office of the Prime Minister Communications WhatsApp channel today.
FanZone, your reliable, authentic supplier, has just gotten better. You can now visit our website www.fanzonett.com for your authentic wear and collectibles. The only place where you can use both your Visa debit and credit cards. Visit our website fanzonett.com to make your purchase today.
WESN.
This is 10 Questions. I'm Andy Johnson. Thanks as usual for being with us here at WESN. Let's tell you what's going to be happening in the course of this program and this week. Our guest is Denise Deming. She identifies as a wellness therapist and somebody who's a coach and a communications assistant. And more than that, let's give you a little sense of what she wrote in a publication not too long ago. We're talking days ago. Most people in Trinidad and Tobago have 6 different numbers that identify them. Their Board of Inland Revenue number, the National Insurance number, the birth certificate number, the National ID card number, driver's permit number, the passport number. While this may seem normal, it is an outdated and inefficient way of managing citizens' records. I posed 2 questions to my friends in the digital space. Is this system desirable? And how difficult would it be to collapse these numbers into one? The unanimous response was that multiple ID numbers create unnecessary bureaucracy and inefficiency. According to 2014 World Bank report, 120 out of 193 countries had already implemented a single unique identifier for each citizen from birth. If Trinidad and Tobago had such a system, governance and service delivery would vastly improve. Consider the challenges posed during the COVID-19 pandemic. Without a unified citizen database, the government struggled to distribute aid efficiently. A single ID would allow accurate tracking in those in need, ensuring food cards and social benefits go directly to the right people without duplication or fraud. Even Minister Camille Robinson-Regis admitted that the local government bodies and community-based NGOs had to be used to locate those in need. This highlights the lack of a proper data system. A unique identifier would provide transparency, minimizing the ability for people to claim benefits multiple times while ensuring no one else is left behind. Other nations have transitioned to a single ID system over time with minimal disruption. In 2009, India launched the world's largest biometric ID system, the Aadhaar program, which now covers over 1 billion citizens. The real challenge for Trinidad and Tobago is not technology, it's the bureaucratic hurdles and a lack of political will. A unified ID system would require cleaning and consolidating data across government agencies and redesigning outdated processes. But with 1.3 million citizens, this is far less complex than managing McDonald's 1.7 million employees across 100+ countries. The COVID-19 pandemic forced many businesses and government agencies to adopt remote work and online services. This should have been a wake-up call to modernize our systems instead of returning to outdated paper-based methods. The momentum for digital transformation must continue. Perhaps it's time to engage local tech experts to design a national ID system through an innovation challenge. With the right leadership and vision, Trinidad and Tobago can take a bold step into the digital future. The only question left is, will we citizens choose the right leadership team? Good to have you. Let's deal with that last question first. When you say the right leadership team, what are you referring to? What do you mean by that?
We need a leadership team that is intelligent and understands the current requirements of today's world. And we keep selecting leaders who, I don't want to say they're not intelligent, but I'm not seeing their activities focused on how do we transform this country. Because we have a beautiful country, we have the potential for our resources and to earn money and so on, but there just isn't activity for us to get involved. And Andy, here's something that popped into my mind. I just cannot understand how come we are importing fuel from Jamaica. How did we move from a country with 3 oil refineries, sell the last one recently, and now we're importing from Jamaica?
Yeah.
You know?
my sense is that somehow it is part of an arrangement in which we have decided we will assist them.
Well,
Create a market to help them, because I think we were involved in helping to set up the arrangement that they have. And so.
yes, but if we look at Jamaica, Jamaica is doing better than us now. So maybe that was an arrangement from a long time. But Andy, here's what is also important in that. Citizens are never aware of what the backstory is. And in everything we do, there's a backstory. So this petroleum thing, there is a backstory.
Right, and before we went on the air, which I said I wanted to ask you about the earlier Christopher story, and you're saying that there's a backstory behind it. But here's my difficulty. I was saying before we came on the air, I've become familiar with some of these terms for a long time, even before I got into journalism 50 years ago. Somebody is arrested and charged. I've never before heard anybody arrested and then get unarrested. You either arrested and charged, or you were detained for questioning. And if that didn't work to the satisfaction of the prosecution or the people doing the detention, then you walk. But I've never heard of anybody who gets arrested and gets unarrested.
Well, I don't know if unarrested is a term, but it is a very good description of what has happened with the Commissioner of Police. And what bothers me is that if you will be arrested without the data and the evidence, that again is indicative of how our country is. We do things without data, without evidence, so we can just do whatever we wish. Here's an example. Here's a thought that came into my mind. Remember when the Prime Minister was...
Which one? This one?
The current Prime Minister.
Yeah, okay.
It was suggested that he was in the President's car park to stop the listing.
Yeah, the Police Service Commission business.
Listing, right? And that is what popped back into my mind. Because if he could have done that, then I asked myself, what is his role in this ERLA activity, this ERLA thing that has all of us all of us are curious, we are ashamed, we don't know what to say, and so on. So I am sure there's a backstory, and I am sure there was some kind of instruction. I have no evidence, but that's what's in my head.
Yeah. What has happened with the commissioner is that you think that she has a case for somebody has a case to answer about a false arrest, regardless of what happens afterwards, unless it is a situation in which ultimately there will be something that would have arisen for which she would be arrested and charged.
Yeah. Well, I think that the commissioner's lawyer is a tremendous woman.
Yeah, a formidable lady.
When I tell you.
Yeah.
So this is not over. This is going to continue. And hopefully the citizens, our awareness will be raised so that we understand what is happening. But it is too complicated. The stories are coming out almost every day. You get a new story about it.
Yeah. All right, so let's talk about this business about the multiple numbers we have here. But I didn't know what the result of that was during COVID-19. You say that the authorities struggled to meet the objectives precisely because of that. Because why? So somebody, in one case, somebody will have one number. Some people don't have driver's permits. They lost their ID card.
Some people don't have any numbers. Think of that we have citizens, we have people who live here who don't have any numbers because they've not gone through the process to get any of their numbers. And during COVID, there were some comments about people who received, they received food, they received all kinds of things, and they should not have. And there were also stories about people who received duplicates. So they got a food card today and they got another one tomorrow.
By using different numbers.
By using different numbers. So there are a number of issues there. One, there's an issue of not all of our citizens are registered. And that, I was amazed to find that out when I was doing a project and we started talking to people and asking them, okay, so give me your ID number. They say, no, I don't have no ID number. And my thought again is when I look at our voting, where we get about 52% of the population comes out to vote, I ask myself, is it because they don't have ID numbers or is it that they're not interested? So the ID number is important for things like your medical, is important for any kind of funding that you're trying to get. Having an ID number that can be used on all kinds of things just makes a difference in your life.
Yeah. I think the ID number is the easiest to remember because I don't know if things changed, but what mine says, it starts with the year of my birth, the month and the date, and then a 3 digits after that.
Yes,
so
yes. But if you're someone like me, I'm not good at maths at all.
Yeah.
I can't remember that. You know, and it means I have to get my driver's permit, my ID number, my passport number, all of those numbers you have to have. And those numbers are difficult for people to just keep remembering all of them.
Yeah, well, I rehearsed that one and so on. The others, you know, they're a little more difficult, but I could hold on to that. Yeah. But you say that it causes confusion with people.
Mm-hmm. Yes, it causes confusion. When we think of it, you have 6 numbers. You have to renew them. The time you take to renew them, you have to wake up in the morning, you have to get into wherever generally you have to get into Port of Spain or to the city wherever you live. So you have to go there, you go through the process, and then you have to go back home. You have to do that 6 times to renew these numbers. We need one. Yeah. You know?
And there you cite places where that is the case. You have one number that identifies you.
There you should have, but we don't have that.
Yeah, no, I'm saying that there are societies in the place where that is the case.
Yeah. That is done in most countries. 120 of the countries is
right,
what the UN report has said, that people have one number and that one number is associated with them, and once they look at it online, they will find all kinds of other things. So for example, if you were driving and you didn't have your driver's permit with you and the police stopped you, can the police get a number that tells them if you have a criminal record, what issues? I don't think so.
Yeah.
You know, so it's not just, I'm not just quarreling about the 6 numbers. I'm also thinking through that those 6 numbers mean we have bureaucracy and we do not have an exchange of numbers. So for instance, you get a number, you get your ID number from the Elections and Boundaries. There's no, as far as I'm aware, there's no connection between Elections and Boundaries and the licensing office.
The licensing office. Or the passport
or
office.
Or the passport. Oh. You see, you just raised the issue of passports. And I was trying to remember, but I think it's about 20 years ago, you could get your passport in 3 days. How did we move from that to now? We're getting a passport. Takes about 6 weeks. You know, so
Is it not because the society has blossomed significantly, so that more people are aware of going away and so on?
No, and I don't see that, because the process to get your passport 20 years ago has not changed.
Does that not changed?
So that the timing should be the same. What it is, in my mind, is that there are 2 things that happen. One, every time we have a change of government, they shelve all the things that the previous government was doing. So there's no continuity. And then the second one is our bureaucracy has problems. So our systems, structures, and processes are not consistent. I don't even think they're designed.
You think that there's a sense in which I find that a lot of us, a lot of people in the public system, very bureaucracy oriented. We a set of bureaucrats, and people who hold on to that for some reason. That causes issues.
And I think ministers are responsible. People tell me, no, it can't be the minister. Well, I think it's the minister, because you're the leader. And you need to decide, okay, there's one project I'm working on when I come in as the minister, and I'm working on this until we sort it out. You see, and if we do that, then you can copy whatever the system, structure, and process was for that issue and put it in another, attach it to another issue. So that every year, every 6 months, you're working on one thing and you're getting that right. I know that sounds simplistic and, but we have to find a way to transform our country.
And some people say, easier said than done, but everything is easier said than done.
Living is easier said than done.
So how do you propose collapsing the numbers into one? What's the process for you?
I don't know the process because I haven't studied that,
yeah.
But I know that in other countries you have a social security number, and usually that is a number that describes you, and it works with everything. So we have to find a way to put it together, but it means that we have to have our ministries interacting with each other and exchanging information from each other and having some kind, and there are enough digital systems these days for us to be able to do that.
Yeah, how will we decide on which one is the one that is most desirable? So, that, for instance, when I lived in Canada, it seems that a driver's permit was it. You know, you didn't have a driver's permit, you weren't.
I would think that the ID card is the easiest one to work through, because to apply for your ID card is not too difficult in this country. I've had to do ID card, I've had to do driver's permit, and I found ID card was easier than driver's permit. And yeah. ID card is the Elections and Boundaries Office. So that could be the one that they connect all the others to, so that when somebody sees your ID card, they know what your driver's permit is. Yeah. You know, they know what your BIR number is.
That's what you mean when you say that that process would vastly improve the ID situation.
It will improve it. Firstly, from the bureaucratic systems. It will mean that some people are no longer employed, because yeah. Each of these offices that give out these cards have people who are employed. So if you had one, it means that, but it also means that as a citizen, you have an easier approach. You have an easier opportunity that you go to wherever the ID, you go to Elections and Boundaries. Once you do that, BIR is connected to it, your driver's permit is connected to it, all the other cards.
Yeah. And so the rest of them would cease to be as critical as they are now.
My thought is that once they begin the process, all of those numbers are going to be associated, and then they will kind of disappear and move off, because it will be connected. So,
you think that there has to be a process of discussion about it, education about why this is an improvement on where we are and how to go about that?
I think that one of the problems we have in this country is that there is not awareness, so that a lot of people don't understand why we're doing what we're doing. And you know, the awareness issue begins with the employees. If the employees understand what you're doing and why you're doing it, many years ago when I worked in PR, one of the processes that we had was the employee represents the company as a PR officer. So you have to always keep your employees engaged in everything that you're trying to do. Because when somebody asks them a question, you want them to speak well on your behalf. Now, if they did that with the public service, it would make a tremendous difference. So the awareness has to start from within, and then it goes outside.
Yeah, well, what's been the reaction, if any at all, to these suggestions that you put forward here?
Well, a lot of the suggestions that I make, people think that I am politically against the current administration, and that's how they see it. And that to me is just very simplistic.
Yeah.
Because my interest is this country, you know, and the reason I'm passionate about this country is that, and I say it all the time, I was born and grew up in Quarry Street, East Dry River. And from my generation, the majority of the people in my generation were not successful. Several of them have died. For me to have come out of that, for me,
yeah,
it's absolutely wonderful. But I want to see our country continuing to allow people who may be in a difficult circumstance to transition and do well. But for us to do that, the system, structures and processes have to be clear. You know.
That is a district. When I came to live in Port of Spain, I'm coming from Los Bajos.
Los Bajos.
And I was living in what is called Trumacac, between Bmobile and Laventille. And Quarry Street is a place used to have parties, right? And I used to go there with some of my friends and so on, but you were careful. What's the situation now?
In Quarry Street?
Yeah.
There's a family that still lives in Quarry Street whom I'm associated. I visit a lot. Because I think people know me, I feel safe. But it's a difficult space now. And my friends who still live there, they talk about, you know, they don't want to come home late at night and so on. So it has deteriorated. When I grew up in Quarry Street in the 70s, marijuana had just started and drugs had also just started.
Yeah.
Now you can see it. You know, when I grew up, you couldn't see it.
Yeah, it wasn't as obvious. It was happening, but
yeah.
In some cases, like I say, you know, sometimes friends of mine, we go into a party in St. Paul Street, which was, you know, where they have a lot of action and so on, but you go to Quarry Street first, but you know where you're going and so on and so on.
So it was a beautiful space, but in today's world, it's difficult. I have another friend who says to me, I am not going back up Quarry Street because 2 years ago, just immediately after COVID, a guy who lives in Canada came back and he tried to have a party there, a lime, and bring people back people had come home for carnival and people who moved out of Quarry Street, and he tried to bring people there, and there are people who just said, I'm not doing that. We could meet elsewhere, but I'm not doing that. You know, so.
Yeah, that's how the thing happens. So let's come back to this issue. What do you think prevents us from somebody seeing what you've written and wanting to act upon it, because it will make life easier for all of us, for everybody?
I think
people who want the numbers as well as the people who want to get the services where you have to produce the number.
I think people are very afraid of speaking out and being open in whatever the discussions are, because the consequences can be great. You can lose your job. You can be disciplined. So a lot of people are afraid of what can happen. A lot of people, and there some of them are my colleagues, will tell you, Denise, I can't say that. I have a contract with, so I'm not going to say that. There are people who would call me and say, Denise, why don't you talk about so and so? And I say to people, why aren't you talking about it? And their response is, I don't want to lose my contract. I don't want to lose my job. So that we still live in a country in which There are a number of efforts to just destroy people if you don't have.
So you don't think that some of those responses are merely excuses for not wanting to get involved, but to some extent it is a fact that sometimes when you say something, you get targeted.
I have evidence that when you speak out, there are consequences. There are opportunities that will just not be opened for you. So we live in a country in which we determine what you get and what you do based on what we think is your thinking about who you support, as opposed to, is that the person who is academically, who is intellectually, who is thoughtfully deserves something? No, they're not us. They are somebody else.
How do we begin to move away from there so that you're judged as to who you support based on a position you take on an issue?
How do we move away from that?
Where do we start?
We have to transition away. I think it's part of colonialism. So we have to transition away from our colonial heritage and start to think of ourselves as individuals who can control our country, who can control our resources. If you have an opinion, I respect your opinion. I may disagree, but I respect your opinion. We have to do it. The citizens have to start petitioning our governments to do the things that are in the interest of the citizens and not in the interest of the political party or that constituency. It has to be in the interest of our citizens. You look at schools and you look at where those prestige schools are. They're generally in the north, and some of them in southern, but most of them are in the north. We can't continue that. We have to have prestige schools all over the country so that the education of our children is equitable. And that to me is the biggest issue that we have, where people are afraid of giving their opinion. And I think our leaders demonstrate that if you give your opinion, I will do something about it.
Talk a little bit more about the location of the prestige schools and why that makes a difference for people.
Well, the prestige schools, what happened?
We're talking about the St. Joseph's Convents and the
QRC, the CIC, all of those schools are excellent schools. The other secondary schools, there are a few of them that are excellent, but generally they are not delivering on the quality of education that the prestige schools deliver on. And we've been living with this for a while, so we have to find a way to have that prestige school strategy implemented throughout the country. So you don't have what we have now, which is, if you go in front of any of those prestige schools, you often see a maxi taxi.
Well, I happen to be working in an area where you just certain hours where it's not, public traffic is not allowed between 8 and 10 a.m., between 2 and 4 p.m., because a ton load of vehicles have to come there to pick up the people who, in some cases, that's the contractual arrangement between the parents and
to get their children to the prestige schools. And you see it. You see it to get them to, you see it to get them away from. If we were able to take that prestige school strategy, structure and processes and implement it in other schools, Faizabad Senior Comprehensive, Point 410, if we were able to do that, we'd have a different population. But we continue to have a population in which the persons who end up at the prestige schools generally do well.
Yeah. I went into St. Joseph's Convent, St. Joseph, some years ago because my daughter was going there. One of the things that struck me is that on the walls in some of the classroom, they have pictures of all the scholarship winners. And I swear, I was taken by it, but that's sort of how that's part of how they motivate the ones in the class now, And in some cases, they would say, my daughter would say, well, they say, well, we got 13 scholarships last year. We want to get more this year. And
you see the 13 photographs on the wall, so you want to do that. As opposed to other schools, I was doing some work with a school as a volunteer, and I did it for 9 months. And I drove in and out of that school twice a week, and I have never been stopped by the guard. Never. I did something for Holy Name Convent, which is where I went to school. I did something for them recently. And every time I went, the guard stopped me, showed me where to park, and took my name. So a simple thing as that.
Yeah.
It's an indication of the inequity that exists in our society.
So you're a product of a prestige school.
I am the product of a prestige school, but here's something that it's a horrible story. But I used to go to school early because it was my first opportunity with water toilets.
Yeah.
So I preferred to use the toilets than to use the latrine at home.
Yes.
So Holy Name Convent was a fantastic place for me. I wanted to be there. I did everything I had to do because it was beautiful. It was clean. They had nice toilets.
My experience was that I used to be delighted in flushing.
The flushing toilet. Absolutely, but that time has not passed because
for a lot of people it's still
there are still latrines in St. James.
Yeah. All right, so let's come back to this issue here about you think that our process of digitization now, we have a ministry for that and so on, that will when it takes root really, you think that will address this issue, or there'll be a way inside there to address this question about having 10 numbers?
Digitalization will address a number of issues, but I don't have a lot of confidence in the ministry because he has been minister for at least 6 years. Okay.
It's so much already?
He's been minister for a long time. And if I ask him, so what have you done? What has changed? I can't see what has changed. Okay, I saw something on television recently about using a code and so on, which is fine, but I am not seeing the changes that have been made. I am not hearing what are the expectations of our citizens. I'm not experiencing, most of us are not experiencing digitization in the banking sector, in the finance sector. You're not experiencing it in anything that you do when you have to interact with the government. I'm not experiencing that with the government institutions. So I don't know what they're doing.
Digital transformation.
I don't know. I think you see, to me, the word digital transformation means I must be experiencing it as well. What am I experiencing? If I go away and I come back, I still have to fill out a form.
Yeah.
If I'm leaving the country, I still have to fill out a form.
You fill out a form to leave and you fill out a form when you're coming back.
Yeah, and the form that I have to fill out, you cannot write Trinidad and Tobago in that space. So it's the country is too far behind, and I think we just have not had leaders who understand the importance of digital transformation. When your Prime Minister says, I never use an ATM, what am I supposed to think? So I'm not very optimistic that we will transform.
Yeah, even though the Minister of Digital Transformation is somebody who was selected because he appears to have been sort of ahead of the bunch in telecommunications for a long time. He was a president of the Caribbean Telecommunications Union and them kinds of things, and he seems to have a sort of forward-looking kind of mind or approach. But to say that is not to say that because of that life will be made easier, because a lot of times experts in their fields are brought on board, but somehow the systems just cripple them.
And he's one of them. So you can talk about how well he's done all the things, but where is the evidence that this was a good decision? When you work in corporate life, in the private sector, if you're new, you generally have 3 to 6 months to demonstrate what you can transform.
Yeah, if after that,
if
nothing,
after
then you fail the mission.
You generally, they find a way to get you out.
Yeah.
We haven't done that. So we're still waiting for people. We're still saying, okay, digital transformation, we have all kinds of ads and things, we have all, but what are you doing? Yeah. How have you transformed my life?
Yeah, and how have things been set on a path for
a big issue is post-COVID, we have tried to go back to pre-COVID in our work approach.
Wow. It's a difficult way to leave us, but we have to leave it there. for now, but it's, as always, you know, you're an enlightened person, and you continue to present that as a contribution to what we do in Trinidad and Tobago. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Denise Deming. Well, that's our broadcast for this edition. We thank you for staying with us here at WESN. I'm Andy Johnson. See you next time.
WESN.
Transform your home with PCU Plus. From stylish furniture to the latest appliances, we have everything you need to create your perfect space. At PCU Plus, we offer fair prices and affordable financing options that are cheaper than hire purchase agreements. With convenient locations in San Fernando, Tobago, Arima, and our lifestyle showroom in Barra